Hello and welcome to KK Football News. We've got all the FA Cup action to talk about this weekend. So joining me on the sofa is the very elegant Emma Pierce and the not so elegant James Franco. Only joking, it's Jonathan Allpress, as usual, his lovely, charming and happy self. So let's start off with the main talking about of the weekend, Arsenal-Liverpool. Arsenal running victorious 2-1. Emma, what did you think of the match?
I think Wenger definitely had a point to prove this week with Mourinho last week in his press conference, obviously saying it's a success of failure, just everything that's gone on with Giroud. I think he definitely had something to prove. He put out a strong side, and they definitely just attacked the whole game. They didn't stop. Liverpool, to be fair, unlucky, probably. I think they played really well. Some people would say they were the stronger side. But just overall, I think Arsenal definitely dominated the game.
Arsene Wenger showed a lot of faith in Sanego. Obviously, Giroud had the confession on Twitter about his recent indiscretions that had been reported in the press. Obviously, the rumour has it that he denied that to the manager, and obviously when it's come out, Wenger's infuriated. They're saying he's going to not renew his contract, possibly terminate at the end of the season, and so he's gone with young Sanego from the start. What did you think of his performance, Jonathan?
Well, he made a lot of interesting runs. He's a very young talent. He's not really played at this level before. He previously played in I think it was the French second division for Auxerre, and showed a lot of promise. He's had a lot of injuries. In fact, that's why he's only just really starting to play for Arsenal now, because he was injured basically as soon as he signed his contract. And well, he's been injury prone his entire career. He almost quit to become a postman at one point, for example. And if he can stay injury free, he could go far, but there's always that big question mark hanging over him about his injury record.
Well, I always like that you bring some lovely trivia to the table, Jonathan. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain had a good game for Arsenal. He scored a goal, but then obviously there's this odd penalty shout that people have been saying. Howard Webb was well positioned. What was your take on it, Emma?
Yeah, I think it was just stupid from Oxlade-Chamberlain, to be honest. He's so lucky to have got away with it. I think it's a blatant penalty. Anywhere else on the pitch, it would have been a free kick. I just think he takes him out, and there's just not much else really to say about it. I think it's a really stupid thing for him to have done.
Does Suarez's reputation go before him? Obviously, it was a theatrical fall. Jonathan, do you think that contributed to the referee's decision? Was it that he'd just given a penalty away 5 minutes previous at the Emirates?
Well, Howard Webb was right in front of the incident. You saw everything, but I think the fact that Suarez flopped about as he went down, he didn't really fall particularly naturally, and it just came across like a dive. And I suppose that probably swayed Howard Webb's decision. Suarez obviously has this reputation for play acting, and it's caught up with him, shall we say.
Yeah, so that was a major turning point in the game. Obviously, Liverpool would have been back on level terms. But then they pressed for an equaliser, but no real concrete chances came after that. Do you think, after Oxlade-Chamberlain's recent performances, that he's got a good chance of being in the England camp for the Brazil World Cup?
I think he'll definitely be in the squad. It's a question of whether he'll make it into the first team. He's shown, well, he's quite different, I suppose, to most of the England wingers, in that he's quick, he's powerful, but he's just got a lot of skill to him, whereas normally they're sort of one or the other. I think your James Milners or your Theo Walcotts. James Milner's obviously quite big, Theo Walcott's fast, but there's never really a combination of the two like Oxlade-Chamberlain. So I think certainly he'll be in the squad. Whether he'll be in the first team, though, depends on how consistent he is over the rest of the season.
Obviously, Andros Townsend and Raheem Sterling are also very similar players competing for the same spot. Do you think this win, though, after the demolition at Anfield last weekend, shows Arsenal's mental determination? And do you think they're genuinely back in the title race? Well, they were never really out of it, but do you think they're ready now and they've shown the mental grit to go and reclaim the win at Liverpool?
Yeah, I'd definitely say they could still compete for the title. There's no doubt about it. Everyone keeps saying, Arsenal are going to drop, they're going to lose form, but they've not done it yet, and we're getting nearer and nearer the end of the season. I can't see them falling out of the top three unless something happens massively to change.
There were big celebrations at the end. Wenger looked elated. The players were cheering. Fabianski was in the crowd. Liverpool players were on the floor rolling around, crying, and that was just in the 90 minutes and after the game as well. What did you think? Did you think this proves that it's a good old-fashioned FA Cup tie and that the FA Cup still matters?
The FA Cup's always mattered. I think people still care about it as much as they ever did. Obviously, there's more interest in the Champions League now. But the FA Cup is still seen as a big competition. I mean, take Wigan winning it last season. It still matters. It may not matter so much to the top 4 or top 5 or certainly the big teams. I mean, it's still a relevant competition. They still want to win it. Arsenal haven't won a trophy since 2005, I think it was the last time they won the Cup.
Yeah.
So it still matters to these clubs, but the Champions League in terms of finance is worth more to them, and obviously they'll focus more on that. But to every other club that won't make it into Europe, the FA Cup is still the big dream because it's the most attainable trophy.
And there's still nothing like the charm of seeing a conference team come up against one of the Premier League big boys, and that's what makes it special. In the other big game, the top four clash, City against Chelsea at home, City totally dominating that match, so it seems Mourinho's little horse has gone a bit lame. What did you think of that game, Emma?
I think, again, City were just the stronger team. They came out with so much more energy than they did 12 days ago when they last played. I think Chelsea defensively looked a bit weak. I think without John Terry there for organisation, maybe a bit of leadership, they just fell apart a bit. There was so many spaces throughout the game for City to just break through, and they took the chances that they got given.
Obviously, Jovetic got a rare start, and he looked good. He looked sharp. What do you think, Jonathan? He got his goal.
Obviously, he's another player who's not injured, and I think he's about City's fourth choice striker, and I'm not sure if there's a question of whether he really should be there, at least in my opinion. When you've got players like Aguero ahead of you, you've got to ask whether you're actually going to get a game. Now, obviously, he's played today and scored, and a good goal it was as well, but I'm not convinced he's in the right place, player in his stage of his career.
Now, Nasri, he came back after a lengthy injury. Instant impact, he scored after 6 minutes, and he looked sharp. Is he the key to reignite City, because they were free scoring right before his injury, and then they've sort of drawn blank a couple of times since then. Do you think he could be the ignition to their goal scoring firepower?
I think he definitely had a good game. Great link up with David Silva, especially on the goal. I mean, he's world class, isn't he? He's another world class player to add to City's team. I think that speaks volumes in itself. That Jovetic, the goal scorer, was it Jovetic? Have I just messed that up?
Jovetic, yeah.
Sorry. Jovetic, who scored the goal. I mean, saying he's their fourth striker, that just shows what depth they've got in their squad. I think at the moment they're probably one of the best in the Premier League.
And this is such an important victory to Manuel Pellegrini. He's never beaten a Jose Mourinho side in his career, and obviously this is a great mental game for him in the title race as well. He's out-tacticked the tactical genius, you could say.
Yeah. I think as well, Pellegrini, I mean, after he left Madrid, obviously Mourinho took over. I think just it's been a game of egos massively, maybe more so on Mourinho's side. I don't know, but I think to come out and play like that against Chelsea has shown really great sort of mental confidence in the team.
And obviously they go into the massive fixture against Barcelona now full of confidence, so
yeah.
Fingers crossed for them. Everton-Swansea was another big game. 6 years ago, Martinez was managing Swansea and Gary Monk was a player for him. Now the tides are turned and Monk is managing against his old boss. Everton a commanding win, and Swansea, are they in threat of really deteriorating now? Has Monk got a job on his hands, Jonathan?
I think they're still in Europe, and I think they're possibly fighting on several fronts. And you got to remember, back when Martinez took over, they were still way down in the Football League. So they've got a tough job on their hands. I think they might have grown too quickly, I suppose, going from the bottom division of the Football League all the way to the Premiership and into Europe in such a short space of time. And it'll take time for them to grow. Obviously, they've done well in the Premier League in a couple of seasons, but whether they've been found out, I think they've been found out and how to play against them. And a lot of big clubs have that problem, and they've got to change the way they play and figure out how to stay, consistent.
And their star striker, Michu, he's a big miss. He was their star performer last season. Do you think it's pivotal that he gets back quickly so that he can reignite their season, because they look in danger of slipping into the relegation places?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if they want to sort of stay fighting in the Premier League, the FA Cup, whatever, any sort of competition, then they're going to have to get a striker. They didn't look like they had any strike force without Michu. No attacking play, really. I think it's going to be difficult for them.
Lassina Traore, Everton's new 6'8" Ivorian striker, he got his first start and he capped it with a very well taken goal. What did you make of him?
Well, he's a bit of an interesting player. I'm not entirely sure why he's at Everton, because he only signed for Monaco over the summer. So him suddenly popping up on loan at Everton's a bit of a strange one. But Everton always have a problem with finding, consistently scoring strikers. And if he can pick things up and develop, I honestly think he can score.
He's got
a lot
big
of goals.
Boots to fill. Obviously, Lukaku's out injured.
He's got big boots as well.
Yeah.
6'8".
Yeah. obviously, but he's got the big boots to fill, and Lukaku was scoring goals for fun at Everton. Now he's out injured. They look quite similar in their style. They're big, aggressive, but he looks quite neat with his feet, similar to Peter Crouch with that height. Is that going to be a threat to defenders?
Well, it's certainly, I imagine, more difficult for defenders to read, to have a big guy, particularly known for their strength and ability to dominate play, to suddenly be more adept to the ball, like a smaller striker, shall we say. So it's going to be more difficult for defenders to read how he plays if he's got that string to add to his bow.
Now, Ross Barkley had another really good game for Everton, and he's different to a lot of other English players in that he plays in the hole and he's a bit attacking, he drops deep, and he's got a bit of a good engine. Do you think he could be possibly an outside shot for a starting berth at the World Cup?
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a chance. I mean, young player, he's probably the best in the Premier League. He's great. He definitely had a good game at the weekend. Just there's not really a reason why he couldn't play for England.
And Leighton Baines obviously got on the score sheet again. He's having another fantastic season for Everton. With Ashley Cole's places limited under Mourinho, do you think Baines is now England's first choice left back?
I think the player who plays most will end up in the squad regardless of experience. Ashley Cole's coming towards the end of his career now. He's getting on to his mid-30s, and there's been rumours of him moving to the MLS and things like that. So I think, Leighton Baines isn't actually that young either. He's certainly in his late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So he should be first choice left back. Whether he will be is another question, because England tend to pick experience.
And Ashley Cole obviously has a major tournament experience.
Over form, and they always seem to have done. And the less of it, the less risk-taking, the more conservative, which is why I'm not entirely sure Ross Barkley will even make the squad, regardless of his play, because England always tend to pick the older, more experienced players over youth and the unknown qualities that they bring.
Well, we had a really good old-fashioned FA Cup tie at Bramall Lane. Sheffield United overcoming Championship opponents in Nottingham Forest 3-1. And now they've set up a potential Steel City derby against Sheffield Wednesday if they manage to overcome Charlton after their game was postponed. Nigel Clough's men did well. A controversial decision in the 90th minute for the winner, really. A penalty decision. Michael Oliver took his time. What was your take on it, Emma?
I think it's a tricky one, really. I don't know from watching it back. I don't know whether the defender was just going down to block the cross coming in or whether he purposefully handballed it. I think it's a hard one to decide, but I mean the ref's in a good position. He's given it, so just have to play to the whistle, don't you? So.
And the fans stormed the pitch at the end, and there was elation. I think the draw had already been made, so they knew that they could be playing their arch rivals. That's going to be a tasty fixture if that goes ahead, Jonathan. I think we're all wishing for that.
Oh, of course. Everyone loves a derby, whether that be from the lower leagues, like the two Sheffield teams. Now, obviously, they've fallen quite away, but it still means a huge amount to them.
There'll be a lot of police presence, I can
of
guarantee you
course.
that. Yes. Sunderland v Southampton. Now both teams made massive changes. Sunderland 9 changes in their starting lineup, but it didn't backfire for them. Pochettino's been highly criticised for making 6 changes to his side after they lost 3-1. What did you make of the chopping and changing? Is this derogatory to the FA Cup and making it a smaller competition than it is?
Yeah, I mean both sides obviously made changes, but I think being the visiting side, you should always take your strongest squad. So to have maybe taken a weakened squad with that many changes probably could be seen as disrespectful to both the opponent and the travelling fans that made the journey down there.
Okay, what's happened to Southampton's season? They started so brightly, Jonathan.
Well, Ricky Lambert's miss in the games have summed up how they've gone on, really. They were up the top of the table at the start of the season, carried that on. They've gone off the boil. They're now mid-table. Cortese's left, the very influential chairman. So they've got to find a solution. They've got to sort things out. But as it stands, they'll stay safe. They won't go down, but they won't, improve where they are.
They are the mid-table side in the Premier League, obviously. They're sort of a battle for 4th place and European places, and then below them it's very, very close from about 11th to right at the bottom, so they are languishing in the middle. They're sort of caught in limbo at the moment. What do you think could reignite them this season?
Well, perhaps that's the problem. They're safe, but they have no real chance of improvement as it stands, so they have no real motivation to. Obviously they can improve next season. But as it stands, they're sort of bogged down in mid-table and there's nothing for them to fight for, particularly.
And in the final fixture of this weekend, Wigan the holders of the FA Cup currently, managed to beat Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Cardiff. Now they're struggling for a win at the moment. What was your take on that game, Emma?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure why Solskjaer took the job. I think it's definitely a hard one to pick up from. Cardiff, possibly unlucky again. Both sides were average all the way through, but Wigan took their chance at the end. I mean, great goal by great goal by Ben Watson. I think the Cardiff defence, though, was sloppy throughout. Both goals, it wasn't great.
That wall split and that ball flew past. It was a cracking free kick, but the wall should have done better. Jonathan, defensively, Cardiff look as vulnerable as any team in the Championship at the moment.
Yeah, well, not only vulnerable in defence, but also in attack. I mean, I'm sure Solskjaer wishes he could put his boots back on at this rate. They certainly need it. Struggling for goals, struggling to keep clean sheets.
So we'll look ahead to the quarter-final fixtures of the FA Cup. Arsenal play Everton. That should be a tasty fixture again. Who do you think will come out on top on that one?
It's hard to say at the moment. I'd like Everton too. I always like it when teams, don't always win trophies get a chance to, and I love Everton as a side. They're hard working.
Look at the other fixtures. Brighton or Hull City will play Sunderland. Sheffield United obviously against either Sheffield Wednesday or Charlton, and then the big one, the final from last year. It's a repeat. Manchester City against Wigan. Do you think Ben Watson could be the scourge of the Etihad again?
Well, they were the underdogs last year. They're the underdogs this year, but they won the whole competition last time. I honestly think they could do it again. They probably won't, but they've certainly got that chance, and they've got that knowledge that they can do it.
Yeah, they've definitely got the confidence from last year, I think, behind them. They know they could go to the Etihad, put a strong team out, I think, and do a job on City.
That's all from this FA Cup special of KK Football News. Thanks again to Emma Pearce and Jonathan Allpress for joining me on the sofas. We'll be back next week with all the latest from the Barclays Premier League. Until then, subscribe on Twitter @KKFootballNews and watch us on YouTube. Thanks again. See you next week.